Well, Illinois' race to cash in on the AI boom collides with a hard reality, with a fierce debate over who could handle the cost of the power-hungry data centers in the Prairie State. Well, during Wednesday's State of the State address, Governor J.B. Pritzker proposed a 2-year pause on tax incentives for new projects, saying residents shouldn't bear the cost of rising utility bills. Consumer advocates want stricter rules, including requiring data centers to generate their own clean power and pay for grid upgrades. Industry leaders warned that heavy regulation could push jobs and investments to other states.